When police officers accused a black woman of stealing in an upscale store, they thought they were catching a criminal. But as the situation escalated, the woman calmly revealed a piece of information that left them frozen in shock. She was a Supreme Court judge. What followed wasn't just a dramatic twist, but a powerful lesson in assumptions, prejudice, and the dangers of judging people based on appearances. This encounter didn't just change the officers. It became a moment of reflection for everyone involved. Stay tuned to see how this tense and eye-opening story unfolds. Before we dive in, let us know where you're watching from, and subscribe for more stories that challenge perspectives and inspire change. It was a bright afternoon in the heart of the city, where people strolled through an upscale shopping district. The stores in this area were known for their high-end goods, elegant displays, and exclusivity. Among the shoppers was Justice Olivia Grant, a distinguished Supreme Court judge with years of experience. She was in her mid-40s, dressed in a tailored blazer and carrying a leather handbag. Olivia exuded confidence and grace, yet she carried herself humbly. Olivia had stopped by a boutique to purchase a gift for a close friend. She browsed the displays, carefully selecting an item she knew her friend would love. The store was busy, with customers chatting and employees moving briskly between the aisles. Olivia paid no attention to the occasional glances from other shoppers or staff members. She was used to the subtle scrutiny that often followed her. At the same time, two police officers, Officers Daniels and Carter, were patrolling the area. They had been called to the boutique earlier that week to investigate a theft and were keeping an eye on the store as part of their routine. When they saw Olivia, their suspicions were immediately aroused. To them, she didn't fit the image of the typical shopper in such an exclusive store. "Look at her," Daniels muttered to Carter. "She's acting suspicious." Carter nodded. "Let's check it out." Olivia continued browsing, unaware that the officers were watching her closely. She selected a beautifully wrapped item and walked toward the counter. As she waited for her turn, Daniels and Carter entered the boutique, their eyes fixed on her. They exchanged a glance, silently deciding to act. The boutique was quiet except for the faint hum of conversation and the occasional rustle of shopping bags. Olivia handed her chosen item to the cashier, smiling warmly. The cashier began processing the transaction, but before Olivia could finish paying, the officer stepped forward. "Ma'am, we need to speak with you," Daniels said, his tone authoritative. Olivia turned to them, surprised but calm. "Is there a problem, officers?" she asked politely. "We received reports of theft in this area," Carter said, glancing at the cashier and the item Olivia had chosen. "We need to ask you a few questions." The boutique grew quieter as nearby shoppers and employees noticed the interaction. Olivia's posture remained steady. "Of course," she replied, her voice composed. "What would you like to know?" Daniel's tone grew sharper. "We'd like to see a receipt for your purchase, and we'd like to check your bag." Olivia frowned slightly, her professionalism never faltering. "I haven't finished paying yet," she said, gesturing to the cashier, "and I don't believe I've done anything to warrant such an accusation." The officers exchanged a glance, their suspicion unwavering. "This is just routine," Daniels said, though his tone suggested otherwise. Olivia remained silent for a moment, carefully considering her response. She knew that escalating the situation would only make things worse. Instead, she decided to comply, for now. As the officers waited, the tension in the boutique thickened. Shoppers whispered among themselves, some glancing at Olivia with pity, others with curiosity. The employees behind the counter looked uncomfortable, unsure whether to intervene. Olivia, however, stayed calm, her poised demeanor hinting at an authority far beyond what the officers could have imagined. What happened next would leave everyone in the boutique stunned. The boutique grew eerily quiet as the interaction between Olivia and the officers continued. Shoppers and employees watched the scene unfold, their curiosity and unease filling the room. Olivia remained calm, her composed demeanor unwavering, even as the officer's suspicions became more pointed. "Ma'am, we need you to open your bag," Officer Daniels said firmly, stepping closer. His tone left little room for discussion, but Olivia maintained her grace. "Am I being accused of something?" Olivia asked, her voice measured. "Or are you simply assuming I've done something wrong because of how I look?" Daniels hesitated for a moment, but Officer Carter interjected. "This is a standard check. We've had reports of theft in this area, and we need to ensure everything is in order." Olivia tilted her head slightly, her expression calm but sharp. "I see. And do you stop every customer here for a bag search, or am I a special case?" Carter avoided her gaze, but Daniels doubled down. "Look, ma'am, we're just doing our job. If you have nothing to hide, this shouldn't be a problem." At this point, the cashier, still holding the item Olivia had selected, cleared their throat nervously. Ma'am was just about to pay," the cashier said, their voice shaking slightly. "I can vouch that she didn't take anything." But the officers ignored the cashier, their focus solely on Olivia. "Please open your bag," Daniels repeated, this time with a sterner tone. Realizing the situation wasn't going to de-escalate without action, Olivia sighed softly. "Very well," she said, carefully setting her handbag on the counter. She unzipped it and opened it wide, revealing its contents: a wallet, a set of keys, a small notebook, and a pen. "There you go," she said, her voice steady. "As you can see, I have nothing to hide." The officers leaned in, inspecting the bag's contents with unnecessary scrutiny. A few onlookers muttered among themselves, their discomfort with the officer's behavior evident. Despite the clear evidence of her innocence, Daniels and Carter exchanged skeptical glances, still unwilling to back down. "Can I go now?" Olivia asked, her tone calm but firm. Daniels didn't answer immediately. Instead, he gestured toward the cashier. "Finish the transaction," he said gruffly. The cashier, eager to move things along, quickly completed the sale and handed the neatly wrapped item to Olivia. She accepted it with a polite nod, then turned back to the officers. "I believe we're done here," she said, her eyes meeting Daniels with a quiet strength. But just as she reached for her handbag, Daniels spoke again. "Before you go, we need to see some ID." Olivia raised an eyebrow, her patience being tested. "Is this really necessary?" she asked. "I've done nothing wrong, and I've complied with all your requests." Carter, sensing the growing tension, tried to soften his tone. "Ma'am, we're just following protocol. If you could show us some identification, we can clear this up." Olivia paused for a moment, then reached into her bag and pulled out her wallet. She calmly opened it and handed over a sleek, official-looking ID card. Daniels took the card, glancing at it casually. But as his eyes scanned the text, his expression froze. He blinked, then read it again, his posture stiffening noticeably. Carter leaned over to look at the card, and his jaw dropped. The ID clearly identified Olivia as Justice Olivia Grant, a sitting Supreme Court judge. The bold lettering, the official emblem, and her professional photo left no room for doubt. Daniel's face paled as he looked up at Olivia, suddenly realizing the enormity of his mistake. "You're a Supreme Court judge?" he stammered, his tone now laced with disbelief and regret. "Yes," Olivia replied, her voice steady. "And I'd like to know why I was treated as a suspect in a store where I was simply trying to make a purchase." Carter took a step back, his face flushed with embarrassment. "Ma'am, we didn't know," he stuttered. "We were just doing our job." Olivia's gaze remained steady, her calm demeanor now tinged with disappointment. Your job is to protect and serve, she said firmly, not to harass innocent people based on assumptions. The boutique was silent, save for the faint hum of the store's background music. The onlookers, who'd been quietly observing, now looked at the officers with a mix of judgment and discomfort. Some exchanged knowing glances, while others shook their heads in disbelief. Daniels handed the ID back to Olivia, his hand trembling slightly. I'm sorry, ma'am," he said quietly. "We didn't mean any disrespect." Olivia took the ID, placing it back into her wallet with deliberate calm. "Disrespect isn't just about intention," she said. "It's about action. And your actions today reflect a troubling bias that has no place in your line of work." Carter opened his mouth to respond, but quickly shut it again, knowing there was nothing he could say to excuse their behavior. The reality of the situation was painfully clear. They had accused a Supreme Court judge of theft simply because they assumed she didn't belong. Olivia picked up her handbag and the gift she had purchased, preparing to leave. Before she did, she turned back to the officers. "I'll be filing a report about this incident," she said. "Not because I want to punish you, but because I believe this behavior needs to be addressed." With that, she walked toward the exit, her head held high. The boutique staff and customers watched her go, their admiration for her poise and strength evident. Daniels and Carter stood frozen, the weight of their mistake pressing down on them. The lesson they had just learned would stay with them for a long time. The boutique door closed behind Olivia, but the silence she left behind was deafening. Officers Daniels and Carter stood frozen, their minds racing as they processed what had just happened. They had accused a Supreme Court judge of theft, treating her with suspicion and bias, only to have their assumptions shattered in the most humiliating way possible. The boutique manager approached the officers cautiously. "Officers," she said quietly, "I hope you realize that what just happened didn't reflect well on you or your department." Daniels turned to the manager, his face pale. We didn't know who she was," he mumbled, as if that somehow justified their actions. "But you knew she hadn't done anything wrong," the manager replied, her tone sharp. "You chose to assume the worst, instead of listening to her or even observing her actions. And now, everyone here has seen how poorly you handled it." Carter stepped forward, his voice low and apologetic. "We made a mistake," he admitted, "but we didn't mean to cause harm." The manager gave him a hard look. "Intentions don't erase actions," she said. "I suggest you think about that before the department hears about this." The next day, Daniels and Carter were summoned to a meeting at the police precinct. When they arrived, they found their commanding officer waiting for them, along with Justice Olivia Grant. She was seated at the table, her presence commanding but calm. The officers immediately felt a knot of anxiety in their stomachs. "Officers, take a seat," the commanding officer said sternly. "Justice Grant has requested this meeting to address what happened yesterday." The two officers sat down, avoiding Olivia's gaze. She looked at them steadily, her expression more disappointed than angry. "Before we begin," she said, "I want to make one thing clear. I'm not here to destroy your careers or seek revenge. I'm here because what happened yesterday wasn't just about me. It's about a larger issue that needs to be addressed." Daniels and Carter nodded, their guilt evident. "We understand, ma'am," Daniels said quietly. Olivia leaned forward slightly, her tone firm but measured. Do you understand what it feels like to be judged not for who you are, but for what someone assumes you to be? To be treated as if you don't belong, simply because of the color of your skin or where you're standing." The officers remained silent, unable to find the words to respond. "I've spent my career fighting for justice and fairness," Olivia continued. "And yet, yesterday, I was made to feel like a criminal in a store, where I was simply trying to shop. You assumed the worst of me without any evidence or reason." Carter cleared his throat, his voice shaking as he spoke. "We were wrong, ma'am. There's no excuse for how we treated you." Olivia nodded slowly. "Acknowledging your mistake is a start," she said. "But words mean nothing if they're not followed by action. What I experienced yesterday is something that happens to people every day. People who don't have a title or position to protect them. And that's what makes this so serious." The commanding officer, who had been listening quietly, spoke up. "Justice Grant has requested that we implement new training programs focused on bias awareness and respectful engagement. I've agreed, and you two will be among the first to participate." Daniels and Carter nodded, their expressions a mix of relief and determination. They knew they had been given an opportunity to learn and grow, and they were determined not to waste it. As the meeting wrapped up, Olivia addressed the officers one final time. "Change doesn't happen overnight," she said, "but it starts with moments like these, moments where we confront our mistakes and commit to doing better. I hope this experience has taught you something valuable, not just about me, but about the responsibility you have as officers of the law." Daniels and Carter stood as Olivia prepared to leave. "Thank you, Justice Grant," Daniels said, his voice sincere. "We'll work to earn back the trust we lost." Olivia gave them a small nod before turning to the commanding officer. "I'll be following up to ensure these changes are implemented," she said. "For now, I trust you to handle this appropriately." With that, she left the room, her presence lingering long after she was gone. Over the following weeks, Daniels and Carter attended the bias awareness training sessions, where they listened to stories from community members who had faced similar experiences. Each story reinforced the importance of their role as protectors, not enforcers of preconceived notions. Over the following weeks, Daniels and Carter attended the bias awareness training sessions, where they listened to stories from community members who had faced similar experiences. Each story reinforced the importance of their role as protectors, not enforcers of preconceived notions. One particular session stuck with Daniels. A young man stood before the group and said, "You don't understand how much your actions affect us. A single moment of judgment can change someone's entire view of law enforcement, for better or worse." Daniels nodded, the words hitting him deeply. He thought back to his encounter with Olivia and realized how easily things could have gone differently if she hadn't been so composed. Meanwhile, Olivia used the incident as a platform to advocate for broader change. She spoke at legal and community events, sharing her story not out of anger, but as a call to action. "Respect and dignity should never be conditional," she said during one speech. "We must challenge the biases that blind us to each other's humanity." Her message resonated with many, inspiring individuals and organizations to take steps toward greater inclusivity and fairness. Weeks after the incident, Justice Olivia Grant's story had spread beyond the boutique and the precinct. People from all walks of life were discussing the encounter, praising Olivia for her grace and professionalism in the face of unfair treatment. The incident highlighted not only the personal biases of the officers, but also the systemic issues that perpetuated such behavior. For Officers Daniels and Carter, the incident became a turning point in their careers. The bias awareness training sessions they attended were uncomfortable, but eye-opening. They sat quietly as community members shared personal experiences of being judged, dismissed, or unfairly treated by those in positions of authority. One story, in particular, left a deep impression on Daniels. A middle-aged man named Mr. Johnson stood before the group and shared his experience of being wrongfully accused of shoplifting in his youth. "I was just a kid," he said, his voice heavy with emotion. I didn't have a title or a badge to prove my worth. All I had was my word, and no one believed it. That moment changed the way I saw the world, and not for the better. Daniels listened intently, realizing how similar Mr. Johnson's experience was to Olivia's encounter. The only difference was that Olivia had the power of her title to make the officers stop and reconsider. What if she hadn't been a Supreme Court judge? Would the outcome have been the same? One morning, as Daniels arrived at the precinct, he found an envelope on his desk. Inside was a handwritten note from Justice Grant. It was brief but impactful. Officer Daniels, change begins with acknowledgement and effort. Use this experience to be a force for good, not just in your work, but in your community. Respect is the foundation of justice, and you have the power to uphold it every day. Sincerely, Justice Olivia Grant. Daniels read the note twice, feeling a mix of gratitude and determination. He shared it with Carter, who was equally moved by the judge's willingness to extend grace despite their mistake. "She didn't have to do this," Carter said, shaking his head. "She could have left us to deal with the consequences on our own." "But she didn't," Daniels replied. "She gave us a chance to grow. We can't waste it." Justice Grant, meanwhile, continued her advocacy efforts. She met with local leaders, law enforcement officials, and community members to discuss ways to address implicit bias and improve interactions between police and the public. She emphasized the importance of accountability, but also highlighted the potential for growth and redemption. "Every individual has the capacity to learn from their mistakes," Olivia said during one meeting. "But change requires intentional effort, both from individuals and the systems that support them." Her work led to the implementation of new training programs at the precinct, including a mentorship initiative where officers partnered with community leaders to foster understanding and build trust. Olivia's story became a catalyst for meaningful change, inspiring other precincts in the region to adopt similar measures. Months later, Daniels and Carter were on patrol in the same upscale shopping district where they had encountered Olivia. This time, their approach to their work was different. They no longer viewed people through a lens of suspicion. Instead, they approached every interaction with respect and an open mind. While walking past a cafe, they saw Olivia sitting at an outdoor table, reading a book. She glanced up and noticed them, offering a small nod of acknowledgement. Daniels and Carter hesitated for a moment before approaching her. "Justice Grant," Daniels began, his voice steady but respectful. "I just wanted to thank you for the note, for the meeting, for everything." Carter chimed in. "We've learned a lot since that day. It's changed how we approach our work, and we owe that to you." Olivia closed her book and looked at them, her expression thoughtful. "It's not me you owe," she said. "It's the people you serve. Every day is an opportunity to do better, for them and for yourselves." Daniels and Carter nodded, her words reinforcing the lesson they had carried with them since the encounter. As they walked away, they felt a renewed sense of purpose, determined to honor the trust their badges represented. The months following the encounter with Justice Olivia Grant marked a significant transformation for Officers Daniels and Carter. The lessons they learned from their mistake became a cornerstone of their personal and professional growth, pushing them to re-examine their approach to policing and their role in the community. The precinct where Daniels and Carter worked also underwent a noticeable shift. Inspired by Justice Grant's advocacy, the commanding officer implemented comprehensive changes to address implicit bias and improve community relations. These changes included bias awareness training. Regular workshops were held to educate officers about recognizing and addressing their own biases. These sessions featured speakers from diverse backgrounds, including community members who shared first-hand experiences. Community engagement programs. Officers were encouraged to participate in events such as neighborhood cleanups, youth mentoring, and town hall meetings to build trust and strengthen relationships with the public. Incident review. Panels. A new system was introduced where contentious encounters, like the one with Justice Grant, would be reviewed by a panel that included both law enforcement officials and community representatives. The goal was to ensure accountability and transparency. Daniels and Carter not only participated in these initiatives, but became vocal advocates for them. They often shared their story with their colleagues, hoping it would prevent others from making the same mistake they had. For Justice Olivia Grant, the incident was a reminder of the biases and challenges that many people face daily. Rather than letting the experience frustrate her, she used it as an opportunity to drive meaningful change. She continued meeting with police departments, civic organizations, and schools to discuss how assumptions and prejudice harm individuals and communities. During one of her speeches at a community forum, Olivia said, "Respect should not be a privilege. It should be a given. Every person deserves to be seen, heard, and treated with dignity, regardless of their title or appearance. If we can commit to that simple principle, we can build a better, fairer society." Her words resonated deeply with those in attendance, sparking conversations about how individuals and institutions could contribute to change. Inspired by the widespread attention the incident garnered, Olivia decided to write a reflective piece about her experience. The article, titled "Judged Before Judging: A Lesson in Bias and Redemption," was published in a widely read legal journal. In it, she recounted the boutique encounter and the subsequent events, emphasizing the importance of accountability and growth. One moment can define not just an individual, but an entire institution, Olivia wrote. The officers who misjudged me had a choice: to double down on their mistake, or to confront it with humility and a commitment to improvement. They chose the latter, and that is where true change begins. The article was shared widely, reaching not only the legal community but also educators, activists, and law enforcement professionals across the country. Many praised Olivia's ability to turn a negative experience into a powerful call for progress. For Daniels and Carter, their encounter with Justice Grant was a humbling experience that reshaped their outlook on policing. They became active participants in community programs, regularly attending events where they could listen to residents' concerns and share their own journey. At one such event, Daniels stood before a group of high school students and shared his story. "I made a mistake," he said candidly. "I judged someone unfairly, and it taught me a hard lesson about the power of assumptions. But it also taught me that mistakes don't have to define you. What matters is how you choose to grow from them." Carter added, "Every day we have a choice. We can either act on our biases or challenge them. And challenging them isn't just the right thing to do. It makes us better officers and better people." Their honesty and willingness to learn earned them respect within the community. Residents, who had once viewed them with skepticism, began to see them as allies, bridging the gap between law enforcement and the public. Months after the incident, Daniels and Carter crossed paths with Justice Grant again, this time at a community policing event. Olivia was speaking on a panel about fostering trust and respect between law enforcement and the public. After the event, the officers approached her. "Justice Grant," Daniels said, his tone respectful, "we just wanted to thank you again for giving us the chance to learn and grow. Your words and actions have stayed with us, and they've changed how we approach our work." Carter nodded. "You could have chosen to punish us, but instead, you chose to teach us. We'll never forget that." Olivia smiled warmly. "The fact that you've taken this experience to heart means more to me than you know," she said. "Mistakes are inevitable, but it's what we do after them that defines who we are. Keep using your roles to make a positive impact." As the officers walked away, they felt a renewed sense of purpose. The encounter with Justice Grant had not only changed their approach to policing, but had also deepened their commitment to fairness and respect. The story of Justice Olivia Grant and Officers Daniels and Carter became a catalyst for change far beyond the precinct. It served as a reminder that even in moments of conflict, there is an opportunity for growth, understanding, and transformation. For Olivia, it reaffirmed her belief in the power of accountability and grace. For the officers, it was a turning point that reshaped their careers and their lives. In the end, the incident was more than just a dramatic encounter. It was a profound lesson about the importance of seeing people for who they truly are, and the potential for redemption when we confront our biases. The story of Justice Olivia Grant and the police officers who wrongly accused her is a powerful reminder of the dangers of assumptions and the transformative power of accountability. What began as a moment of bias and poor judgment became an opportunity for growth, redemption, and systemic change. Justice Grant's poise and wisdom turned what could have been a bitter confrontation into a meaningful lesson for everyone involved. The officers, Daniels and Carter, took the experience to heart, committing to improving themselves and the way they served their community. Their journey from misjudgment to understanding shows that change is possible when we are willing to confront our mistakes and learn from them. What about you? How do you handle moments when you've been misjudged, or when you've misjudged others? Do you believe in the power of second chances to create growth and understanding? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. If this story inspired you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories that challenge perspectives and inspire change. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you next time with another thought-provoking and powerful tale. Until then, remember, respect is not earned by titles or appearances. It's the foundation of justice and humanity.